Let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating and, honestly, incredibly timely text called The Third Way, an intellectual framework for Indian youth. Look, if you've ever felt just completely overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of the 21st century, and especially if you're navigating the crazy rapid transformations happening in India right now, you can really think of this explainer as your essential intellectual toolkit. We're going to explore a structured way to process the world around us. It's all about equipping you with the clarity you need to navigate modern life without losing your footing. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with the age of confusion, identify the false choice, introduce the principle of inquiry, apply it to navigating modern challenges, and finally ground it all in a humanist foundation. Let's get to it. Section 1. The Age of Confusion. So picture this. A young person in India today is growing up in a world where ancient traditions are suddenly and intensely colliding with this global digital culture. You are constantly, and I mean constantly, bombarded by competing voices. On one hand, you've got family and tradition, religious teachers, and political leaders. And on the flip side, you've got Instagram, YouTube, artificial intelligence, and consumer capitalism. Every single one of these voices is practically shouting at you, telling you what's true, what's valuable, and exactly who you're supposed to be. And the result? Well, it isn't just unprecedented freedom. A lot of the time, it's just deep, paralyzing confusion. Section 2, the false choice. When you're faced with all those competing voices, society kind of forces you into this binary trap. It presents a false choice. On one side, you have blind tradition, this idea that you absolutely must accept everything simply because it's been passed down for generations. And on the other side, blind modernity, the belief that you have to reject everything old, just assuming that science and shiny new technology can explain every single facet of human existence. But the text argues a really crucial point here. Both blind obedience and blind rejection are intellectually irresponsible. They're just different flavors of intellectual dependence. Think about it. Neither age nor novelty automatically makes an idea true. So, if we can't blindly accept and we can't blindly reject, what do? Well, we have to pause and shift our entire mindset. Instead of agonizing over that old, exhausting question of, what should I believe? A mature mind asks a much, much better question. How should I decide what deserves to be believed? That right there is the pivot. It's not about finding the right answer. It's about developing a method to find the right answer. Which brings us to Section 3, the principle of inquiry. The foundation of this third way is what the text calls a scientific temper. Now, hold on, this isn't about reducing every beautiful human experience to cold laboratory measurements, and it definitely doesn't mean becoming hostile to spirituality. Actually, scientific temper is just a method of pure intellectual honesty. It's the practice of refusing to just hand over your judgment to an authority figure, and instead clearly distinguishing between what is known, what is believed, what is deeply experienced, and most importantly, what just remains unknown. So how do we actually apply this temper in real life? Here is your practical inquiry toolkit. Whenever you face a traditional custom, a fiery political narrative, an economic ideology, or a religious claim, you literally just run it through these questions. What's the evidence? How reliable is it? What would actually prove me wrong here? Am I letting my own emotions or ideologies blur my judgment? By actively asking these questions, you stop being a passive consumer of ideas. You start building real, robust intellectual maturity. Let's really let this sink in. Inquiry distinguishes belief from understanding. It transforms inheritance into a conscious choice. You see, the purpose of questioning a tradition is not to destroy it. It's to deeply, truly understand it. When you examine a tradition, when you understand its historical context, and you actually find the ethical value within it, it ceases to be just some habit you inherited from your parents. It becomes something you have consciously, actively chosen. So if you investigate everything, what actually happens? Well, enduring insights like compassion, justice, human dignity, and intellectual freedom, they survive inquiry. They survive because they contain profound human value. On the flip side, elements like social hierarchies, discrimination, superstition, and rigid gender roles, those require reform. Sure, they might have made sense in some past historical context, but they completely failed the test of honest examination today. And remember, Indian civilization has never been completely static, never. From the Upanishads to the Buddha to later social reformers, internal criticism has always been there. Reform is often the exact way a tradition stays alive and avoids becoming a prisoner of its own past. Section 4. Navigating Modern Challenges. Today, your attention is literally the ultimate prize. It's what algorithms, Instagram, and artificial intelligence are all fighting for. And this digital environment heavily favors outrage and absolute certainty over nuance and reflection. Which brings us to the central educational task of our time. We have to move from mere information acquisition to actual judgment formation. AI can give you 1,000 answers in a microsecond, sure, but it can also confidently feed you total misinformation while completely stifling your ability to think for yourself. The goal for a young person today isn't just learning how to use AI, it's learning how to critically question AI. It's about evaluating those answers to find actual genuine wisdom. And hey, this critical evaluation, it has to be applied to the immense economic pressures young people are facing right now, too. Look, economic aspirations, wanting housing, employment, security, those are perfectly legitimate, absolutely. But wealth without wisdom, that just causes loneliness, and chasing status often just brings anxiety. The third way asks you to pursue material development without reducing your entire existence to just material acquisition. True success is defined by what you understand, what you contribute to society, and ultimately the kind of human being you become along the way.
So the crucial point here is captured in 4 incredibly simple words. I do not know. Both the rigid traditionalist and the absolute modernist suffer from this total illusion of certainty. They think they have all the answers. But human knowledge has real, hard limits. Uttering these 4 words is not a sign of weakness, guys. It is a sign of a mature, intellectually humble mind. It's the ability to say, hey, I'm uncertain, without just throwing your hands up and surrendering to nihilism.
Finally, Section 5, the humanist foundation. Inquiry and science are powerful engines, right? But every engine needs a steering wheel. It needs a moral anchor. And that anchor is humanism. If the scientific temper we discussed earlier tells us how to investigate the world, humanism reminds us why our investigation matters in the first place. Because without ethics, knowledge can easily be used to destroy, and technology can totally be used to control. Humanism ensures that people remain the ultimate end goal, valued for their dignity, their freedom, and their equality, rather than just being reduced to mere cogs in some economic, political, or religious machine. Ethics helps us decide what we should actually do with all the discoveries our inquiry yields. All right, bringing it all together, we have what I like to call the third way operating system. Think of this as your ultimate everyday toolkit. Step 1, investigate absolutely everything. Step 2, preserve what actually endures that inquiry. Step 3, reform what doesn't. And step 4, remain open to what cannot yet be fully understood. Age, novelty, popularity, or authority, none of these things magically make an idea true. Honest ethical inquiry is the only real test. This is an intellectual framework that doesn't dictate what you should think, it empowers you with how to think. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought today. The real task of the coming generation isn't merely to just passively inherit society. It is to deeply understand it, boldly question it, radically reform it, and ultimately to recreate it. So as you go out into the world equipped with this new framework, I want you to ask yourself this regarding your traditions, your technology, and your core beliefs. What is truly worth carrying forward, and what must finally, once and for all, be left behind? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me today. Stay curious and keep questioning.